Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel Sneha for CELPIP and IELTS. And in today's video, we are going to discuss part 4 of reading module of CELPIP. If you have gone through my previous videos, there we have already discussed reading part 1, part 2, part 3 of CELPIP. And today we are going to discuss the last part of CELPIP, which is reading for viewpoints. Now, this is the part that most of the candidates generally find very challenging. It's definitely one of the most challenging parts in your reading module of CELPIP. Reading for viewpoints, it's definitely very much informative. It's lengthier as compared to the previous parts, and you have to understand a number of viewpoints. So there's a number of things that you have to comprehend in this text, and that is what makes it challenging. On top of that, the language of this part that can be challenging too. Now, reading for viewpoint, your text, it's going to look something like this. So as you can see, it is definitely lengthy as compared to the previous ones. There are like 5 big paragraphs that you see on the screen right now. And you have 5 questions that are based on this text. They're not only these 5 questions, there are more, but these are the 5 questions that are based on this text. So these are MCQs, as you can see. And for rest of the part, we have one comment box. Now this comment is made by one of the readers of the text. And rest of the 5 questions, 6 to 10, these are going to be in the form of fill in the blanks within this comment. So your questions are divided like this. So you have 5 questions that are directly asked from the text and 5 questions that are there in the comment box in the form of fill in the blanks. So total we have 10 questions and you are given total of 13 minutes in this part. And as you can see, it's the maximum time that's given in this reading part. And it again self-explains why this part is generally challenging. So this part is definitely challenging. That is why maximum time is given for this reading part 4, which is reading for viewpoints. So without any further ado, let's begin the discussion of this part. All right. So when we talk about solving part 4 of reading, now here again we come to the basics of reading, which is strategies that we are going to use, skills that we're going to use. And we have explained, discussed this thing enough in our previous videos that we use scanning and skimming, the 2 skills. You are going to combine them here in this part as well. Now, depending on the type of question, of course, it's asked from you, you're going to use those skills. So we scan, we skim for getting the answers to these questions. Now, the general approach here that you should be applying is do not read complete text in the beginning. Do not do that. It's a complete waste of time. Directly jump to the questions. Read question 1. If the question is based on a specific detail, just search for those keywords, the key information in the text, and try to match your answer. For example, here, question number 1 asks about the article is about. Now, this is not a specific detail type of question. It would rather be asking for main idea. So that's a main idea type of question where scanning is not going to work. Now, for this particular answer, your answer, your hint, it can be there in the beginning when the context of the paragraph that is being discussed. Like what is this text going to be about? So the context is there. And in most of the cases, you can find answer for such question paragraph 1. However, if you're not sure about it, then you can wait till you have read the entire text. After that, you can answer this question. Let's try to answer it. Let's see if we can find it. So the question number 1 is the article is about. What's the main idea of the passage? Availability of junk food, ban on junk food, school-based rules for eating junk food, consequence of consuming junk food. Now, if I have a very quick glance over this entire text, there is this one word which is being entirely repeated everywhere. I see it everywhere, and that is junk food, junk food, junk food, junk food. How many times? Junk food, right? Again, It must be somewhere here as well. So this is one phrase that is being entirely repeated in the text. Now, we have to find it what the article is about, and this phrase it's there in almost all the options as well. So we have to see that what related to junk food is being discussed. Is it availability or ban, or school based rules or consequences of consuming it? And as I said, it can be there is a high probability that it can be there in the first paragraph. So let's read the first paragraph. It says, availability of junk food is changing children's diets in Canada. The latest study by the Center for Science and Environment reveals that packaged food is fast replacing a balanced diet among school children, especially in metropolises. Despite the order given by the Superior Courts of Quebec and Ontario, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is yet to enforce guidelines restricting the availability of junk food in and around schools. However, the views of experts concerning the availability of junk food items in the school premises are conflicting. Now, if you look at this one thing, it begins by discussing availability of junk food, that how it's changing children's diets in Canada. And then in the end, it says views of experts. And what are the views of experts about? It is about availability of junk food items in the school premises. Right? So if views of the experts are about availability of junk food, the whole text will be about availability of junk food, and that's exactly given in one of the options. So that will be my answer. However, if you're not sure about it, you want to, cross check it, so you can wait till you have read the complete text and then you can answer. So now we come to question number 2. Professor Laura Starling disapproves. So now here what we are going to do, we are going to understand the viewpoint of this person, Professor Laura. And what she disapproves means she does not agree with. So I scan the text for this word. Move your eyes very quickly around the text and you see this name over here. Once you have found the name, so you know that this information is somewhere near around this name, right? So we have to understand what is that one thing that she disapproves. Now, she says, childhood obesity is a matter of serious concern because children who are overweight or obese grow up to be overweight or obese adults, says Laura. She's a professor. She adds that restrictions are good. Now, this is her viewpoint. Restrictions are good in schools because it will help students from taking advantage of things. If you want to limit how much junk food a student can buy, that is fine. That means she agrees with putting restrictions on junk food in schools. Then she says the issue is banning junk food. Now, when she says the issue is banning junk food, that means she is not in favor of ban on junk food. And she has this reason because this serves no good purpose. That means it's of no use and will only make them want it more. Them here refers to children, to students. So she is saying that we can place restrictions, that's okay, but the complete ban should not be there because it serves no good purpose, it's of no use. It will only make students want more junk food. This is the viewpoint of Professor Laura. So what is that one thing that she disapproves? That restriction on junk food in the school premises, is that complete ban on junk food in schools, or frequent purchase of junk food by students, or speculated advantages of consuming junk food. Now she clearly says that issue is banning junk food. That means she does not agree with the idea of ban on junk food. So one thing that she disapproves is a complete ban on junk food. She is actually in favor of restriction. So this is something that she agrees with. This cannot be your answer. Frequent purchase of junk food by student, she doesn't talk about it. That she does not agree with frequent purchase. Nothing is mentioned. It's completely off the topic. Speculated advantages of consuming junk food. No, she's not talking about any advantages of consuming junk food. So it's also completely off the topic. So your answer for question number 2 would be a complete ban on junk food. So now let's come to question number 3. It says Professor Marion Nessel's view. So now we have to understand the viewpoint of Professor Marion Nessel. So Professor Marion Nessel says, Professor Marion Nessel and something about his view, because all these things are related to this person only. Again, we scan the text for this name and we see this name over here in third paragraph. So third paragraph says, the permanent restriction on selling of junk food in the school premises is imminent. That means this person seems to be in favor of permanent restriction on junk food, because this person is saying that this restriction on junk food, permanent restriction, it's imminent, something that will happen in the future, that's bound to happen. And then she says, when I was in high school, you could go up to the counter and order a double order of French fries and they would happily give it to you, a giant heaping pile of French fries for lunch. There were ice cream vending machines in the cafeteria. I can only imagine how bad it is now. And obesity is even worse. So it needs to be squashed, she says. Now, what she's talking about her own experience of high school. That when she was in high school, getting junk food in school cafeteria was not at all a problem. But now, in present, she says that the situation is really bad. Obesity is even worse. So it needs to be squashed. That means availability of junk food, it needs to be stopped. It needs to be discontinued. So Professor Marion Nessel's view is inspired by her own experience of school days, is staunchly against the court order regarding junk food, favors a restriction on junk food availability in schools, or emphasizes a problem faced by obese children. Clearly, she favors the restriction on junk food availability in schools, so that would be my answer. The first line begins by saying that permanent restriction on selling of junk food in the school premises is imminent. It needs to be squashed. These things clearly point to this thing, that she favors the permanent restriction on junk food availability in schools, right? So that would be my answer. Now, come to question number 4. Ginny Ehrlich believes. Now we scan for this name, and this name is here in para 4. So para 4 now says, however, Ginny Ehrlich, the CEO of Alliance for a Healthier Generation Quebec, advocates a recent study that denounces any link between school junk food sales and middle school kids' weight. So there is a study which says that there is no link between junk food sales and middle school kids' weight. And this person, Ginny, supports that study. So her viewpoint is similar to this study. She says there is nothing wrong with restriction. So she favors restriction as long as people do not go overboard. What is wrong with letting kids have a special treat occasionally? She furthered. That means she's saying that there's nothing wrong if, kids, they can have junk food sometimes, like occasionally. Nothing wrong in that. Then she says, it puts people in a better mood. Sometimes I wish these studies would show that aspect of our health. If you're miserable all the time, your health will suffer too. So she says that if junk food can put people in better mood, there is nothing wrong in that. Because if you keep on feeling miserable all the time, your health is going to suffer too in that way. So why not have some junk food and feel good, right? That is the viewpoint of Ginny. Then she says at a recent conference, this thing, right? So what's the viewpoint of Ginny? Continuous ban on junk food is good for children. Absence of junk food can make children's lives miserable. Occasional treat of junk food for children is acceptable, or eating junk food leads to weight gain among children. Clearly, she says that occasional treat of junk food for children is acceptable when she says this thing, that there is nothing wrong with restrictions as people do not go overboard. What is wrong with letting kids have a special treat occasionally, right? So if they can have junk food sometimes, they can have it occasionally, there is nothing wrong in that. So it's acceptable. So 3 would be the answer. And now we come to question number 4. Now we have to understand the viewpoint of Van Hook. So Van Hook is here in this paragraph. So what is the viewpoint of Van Hook among these options that we have to tell? Now the paragraph says, the most contradictory viewpoint comes from researcher Van Hook, who criticized the restriction. He said schools should not have the right to place restrictions on the food that students eat inside of school. That schools cannot dictate what student can eat inside the school premises. Then he says, the students should be free to bring the food that they enjoy and to eat the food that they enjoy. It is despicable to see school districts trying to regulate what a child eats. If we say we have food restrictions on foods like unhealthy food not free anymore, aren't we taking away the freedom of what we can eat? That doesn't sound free. So clearly this person says that schools should not decide what students can eat inside of schools. Students can bring anything they want to eat and they can eat anything they want to eat. That's the viewpoint of Van Hook. So, Van Hook advocates deregulating the consumption of junk food inside school premises, supports availability of junk food near the school campus, criticizes the right of freedom to eat guaranteed by law, or states that schools have no authority to dictate dietary habits. Now, he supports availability of junk food but inside schools. He's not talking about near the school campus. So 2 cannot be my answer. Third says, criticize the right of freedom to eat guaranteed by law. So nothing related to guaranteed by law is being discussed. It's a very general viewpoint. He's not saying that, he's criticizing right of freedom to eat, which law guarantees. Nothing of that sort has been discussed. So C cannot be my answer as well. Now we are stuck between first and fourth. Both seem correct, right? But one option is more specific to the text. It has more information as compared to the other one. Fourth states that schools have no authority to dictate dietary habits. Yes, he says that school cannot tell students what they want to eat inside school. So the things that are missing in this option are no authority to dictate dietary habits of who? Students. Where? Inside of schools. These two things are not there in this option. If you compare 1 with 4, it clearly mentions consumption of junk food inside school premises. So at least this information is there, right? So first would be my answer, not the fourth one. He advocates that there should be no rules regarding what students can eat inside the schools. Schools do not get to decide that. So first would be my answer. So this is how you solve first 5 questions of reading part 4. Understand the viewpoint given in the text. Based on this, you have to answer them. Alright, so now we come to the later part of this part 4. So there are these 5 questions, 6 to 10, in the form of fill in the blanks within this box. This is a comment box and it is by one of the readers of this text. So now you have to make logical connections with the text to answer these questions. Understand the viewpoint of this reader as well now. So reader also has a viewpoint, and by building connections between viewpoint of this reader and the viewpoints already discussed that we have already read, build a logical connection and answer them. So let's see how it's done. Now this says, I understand the long-term consequences of unfavorable dietary habits among school-going children. I think Professor Stalling's concern over childhood obesity is justified. So when this reader says that Professor Starling's concern over childhood obesity is justified, that means this reader is in agreement with the viewpoint of Professor Laura. And if you remember the viewpoint of Professor Laura, she said that restrictions are good in schools. However, permanent ban should not be done. So that was her viewpoint. So what will the reader say in agreement with this viewpoint? That having said that, I also believe that dash. So what will the reader believe? Amount of food to be bought should not be dictated. Banning the sales altogether will be futile. Students should be taught to control their cravings, or restrictions of selling junk food in schools should be temporary. So according to the reader, if Professor Laura's viewpoints are justified, that means he will also say either that restrictions are okay up to a certain limit, but ban is not okay. So out of these two, I have at least one over here, and that is banning the sales altogether will be futile. Futile means of no use, useless. So clearly, this is the viewpoint of Professor Laura as well. So if the reader agrees with Professor Laura's viewpoint, he will also say the same thing, that I also believe that banning the sales altogether will be futile. So you have to understand the viewpoint of reader. Remember the viewpoints that you already read previously, build logical connection and choose the correct answer. So this is how you solve the fill in the blanks related to part 4. Now let's proceed further. It says, but I am apprehensive about the stringent stand taken by Professor Nassel against the selling of junk food in the schools as dash, though availability may be squashed temporarily. So if he is apprehensive about Professor Nassel's viewpoint, that means he certainly is not, does not really agree with Professor Nassel's viewpoint. So what will the reader say? That I am apprehensive about the stringent stand taken by Professor Nassel against the selling of junk food in schools as. So he is giving a reason why he thinks so, as dash, though availability may be squashed temporarily. Now what you're going to do is, whenever there is a fill in the blank in the middle of the sentence, you have to read till you find a full stop, because more often than not there is a hint there in the later part of the sentence, and you have to make sure that whatever you choose the answer for this 7th one, it should make sense with the later part of the sentence as well, right? And here there is a clue, which is a connector that shows contrast, though. So we know that though, it connects to opposing ideas. So if on the one side of though it says availability may be squashed temporarily, out of these options, which is that idea which is opposite to this one, that availability may be squashed temporarily? That would be A, that such a restriction cannot be permanent, though availability may be squashed temporarily, that we cannot put permanent restriction, although we can take away availability for some time. So as you saw, it's a hint connector. It connects two opposing ideas. If you did, had not done that, if you, let's say, if you just stopped over here, maybe you did not read this part, then you won't be able to answer the question, because then anything can come there, right? So you need to have a hint, right? So please read till you find a full stop. So here my answer is going to be 1. Now we read further. The reader says, the view of genealogy is what I find particularly interesting. I was intrigued by the study which she referred to. Now, if you remember, there was a study that was mentioned in the viewpoint of genealogy, and that was this study that she supports, and the study says that there is no link between school junk food sales and middle school kids' weight. So what will the reader say? That I was intrigued by the study which she referred to, this study, that dash. So what does the study say? That there is no link between junk food sales and middle school kids' weight. Find the answer that matches it. So that would be option number 2. Negates the connection between children's weight and junk food sales. Talking about study, yes, that negates, that means it denounces. Now these are synonyms. Both of them mean that the study refuses that there is any connection between children's weight and junk food sales. So 2 would be my answer. So you have to build logical connection with the text. Now this comment further says, I completely disagree with. So what will reader disagree about Van Hook? Van Hook's non-compliance with court order, Van Hook's breach of freedom of food preferences, Van Hook's criticism of restriction on junk food selling, or Van Hook's misinterpretation of eating junk food. Now, if you look closely at these options are basically asking that what did Van Hook say in his viewpoint. So if you remember, he said that schools, they should not decide what students can eat inside schools, right? So did Van Hook non-comply with the court order, or did he do this breach of freedom, or did he criticize restriction on junk food selling, or did he misinterpreted eating of junk food. Clearly, Van Hook criticized restrictions on junk food selling. So he said that schools cannot decide that what student will eat inside the schools or what is going to be available inside the schools for students. So Van Hook's criticism, he did not do breach of freedom. Breach of freedom was being done by school, to which he is opposing. He did not anything that does not comply with the court order. He did not misinterpret the eating of junk food. So these cannot be your answers. 3 is going to be your answer. And now we come to the last question. The reader further says, he quoted the court order as something, which I believe is not the right way to perceive it. So he here refers to Van Hook. We are talking about Van Hook, that Van Hook quoted court order as. So what did Van Hook say about the court order, or what did Van Hook what is Van Hook's basically viewpoint about the court order, how he sees the court order. So he sees the court order as a despicable rule violating children's freedom, a regulation that is unjustifiable and unlawful, a violation of the right to eat and live in the world, a breach of freedom of food choice of children. Now again, the options are somewhat confusing, but we have to eliminate those that are kind of vague, that are not related to what he said. So despicable rule violating children's freedom, okay, yes, it violates children's freedom, but it's incomplete again. Children's freedom related to what? Related to wearing of clothes, going out, watching movies, eating, what? That is missing. So it's an incomplete one. A regulation that is unjustifiable, unlawful. No, he did not say that the court order is, unjustifiable, unlawful. These are certainly not the words of Van Hook. Cannot be my answer. Violation of the right to eat and live in the world. Okay, violation of the right to eat, but eat, and that should be related to students. So that is missing. And live in the world. Now, this is not there in this viewpoint, not at all. So this cannot be my answer. Now 4 says breach of freedom of food choice of children. Now here this mention freedom of food choice of children, which was missing here. So I'm not going to choose this. I am going to choose this. This would be my answer. So this is how you're going to solve this. These fill in the blanks that are there in the comment by one of the readers. You have to build a logical connection with the text and then choose your answer. Understand the viewpoint of the reader as well. That is certainly important too. So I hope you enjoyed my today's video. Keep on liking my videos, keep on sharing my stuff, and do subscribe to my channel so that you do not miss out on any such video, any such updates. All the best to all of them who have their CELPIP examination scheduled very soon, and keep on preparing, keep on practicing, and I'll see you all in the next video with some more stuff to discuss. Alright then, take care, bye-bye, until we meet the next time. Take care.